last, ladies and gentlemen. So moving on to the next game, as everybody knows, the Philadelphia Eagles beat the Dolphins 31-17. So if you guys don't mind, fellas, I'm going to go ahead and take this one first. So on the Dolphins perspective, missing 3 O-linemen, number 1 rushing offense in the NFL. Their past 5 games rushing, 162 yards, 3 touchdowns, 222 yards, 2 touchdowns, 142 yards, 2 touchdowns, 350 yards, 5 touchdowns, 142 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So having all this offense coming in, they scored the 70 points. They now have this narrative. This team could be one of the best offenses we've ever seen to touch the blade of grass.
That's correct.
And then you come into the link. So this defense really stepped up when we needed to do. Shaun Desai, man, hell of a fucking game. Hell of a game. I mentioned all those numbers for the Dolphins rushing against us. 45 yards, no touchdowns. We literally shut down that run from the jump. Hassan Reddick was all over the place. His last 4 games, 2 sacks, 2 tackles, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss, 2 quarterback hits, 2 tackles, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss, 5 tackles, 3 sacks, 4 tackles, 1 sack. He is all over the place. And like Toddy's doing for the audio-only listeners, wiping his hand off his forehead, my man Josh Sweats. 5.5 sacks. Second, tied with Hassan Reddick for the most sacks on this team. He had 2 sacks on Sunday night. And I've come on here week in and week out and talked about how I don't know how the NFL let this happen. They wanted us to go back to the bowl. Jalen Carter fell to 10. And let me tell you some of these stats. Through 7 weeks, 91.3 grade, the number 1 defensive tackle. 22% win rate, number 1 against all defensive tackles. A 10.8 pass rush productivity per snap, number 1 for defensive tackles. While we're talking about Philly, talking about the Bulldogs, let's talk about the Philly Bulldogs. Nolan Smith, Toddy, he played 4 snaps. What did he do in those 4 snaps? 2 tackles, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss, 1 quarterback hit. This team is coming up live on defense. We are the 2nd ranked defense against the run following the 49ers, but I think that might be a little bit different coming up here soon. We're seeing some holes in the Niners defense. But this offense, when I tell you guys that first drive, 3rd down, 9 yards to go on the goal line. We got Julio, AJ to the right, Dallas and Smitty to the left, Swift in the backfield. I'm like, oh, it's coming. Guess what's coming? A quarterback draw. Ends in 3 it was heartbreaking. You know, what did we bring Julio in here for? Just to go out there and block? We have to do something. But Brian Johnson had one of those masterclass games. Jalen Hurts to go out there for 23 for 31, 279 yards, 1 interception, 2 touchdowns, and also rushed for 21 yards. He's looking like the MVP out there. He's doing it on both ends or both ways. He's running it. He's throwing it through the air. And A.J. Brown, he could be a top 2 receiver in the NFL. He might not be number 2. 10 catches, 137 yards, 13.7 per catch, 1 touchdown, 5th straight game with 125 yards. We talked about Tyreek Hill being one of Calvin Johnson's records. Well, A.J. Brown did that. For the 5th straight game with 125 yards, ties Calvin Johnson. So this team is playing just when we need them to really lock in. And Devontae Smith finally fucking showed up. It's looked ugly. The first catch was a drop. And I said, oh, shit, here we go again. But he showed up, and I really think Nick Sirianni is the perfect coach for this team. Yes, I love Dougie P, Super Bowl winning coach. But 4th and 1 on our 25-yard line, up 7 points, fuck a punt. Jalen Hurts, put your head down. Let's go get this first down, and let's go drive down and win this game. So, Toddy, I'm going to bring it to you next. What were your thoughts on the Eagles defeating the Dolphins 31-17?
Yeah, I mean, the brotherly shove, I mean, I've said it even going back to a couple of podcasts or however long it goes. Not everybody can do what the Eagles do because your quarterback squats 600 pounds and you have probably the best center in the league. So, and pretty much with that combination, that kind of what makes it unstoppable. And we even saw Sirianni in the post game. They were saying, you know, everybody else does it and it doesn't work, but when we do it, it pretty much works all the time. So as far as the game goes, I thought the Eagles pretty much dominated. I thought Jalen Hurts had some bad turnovers. I've kind of been seeing the little breadcrumbs of him just having bad turnovers in most games, but they just say, fuck it, I'm going to throw it to A.J. Brown, and then A.J. Brown goes for like 150 yards pretty much every game. So he wasn't really getting the ball earlier in the season because they're kind of trying to establish the run, and that's pretty much the Eagles' game plan. And that opens up plays for A.J. Brown to kind of, those big plays down the sideline to him, to Smitty, Goddard, and pretty much opens up the offense when the run game is going pretty well. The Eagles gave the ball to DeAndre Swift a lot more. I think he had 15 carries for about 62 yards, 64 yards. And I thought they just made Tua look like Tua. And I think a lot of people were, pretty high on Tua. And I was like, well, if you look at the Dolphins wins, it's like, oh, they beat the Broncos, the Giants. They beat a bunch of, piss poor teams that I wasn't really too high on. They haven't really played a team. I mean, the team that they played that's, a lot of people consider, one of the top teams in the AFC, the Bills, they got fucking dog walked by the Bills. And then, they played a real team on Sunday night, and the Philadelphia Eagles, they got smacked. And that was the reason why I put the Eagles on, to be the last team on the hotline, which made us, we didn't have 4-0 weekend, by the way. I just thought the Eagles were just a better team. They just looked better. I feel like they're a team that contends for championships. The Dolphins were more like, yeah, they're a nice team, very fast. They got Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, all these fast guys. But, I feel like they're a little bit more finesse. But when they get punched in the mouth, it looks bad. And that's on all accounts, to win. Tua's throwing picks. And, they held Tyreek Hill to under 100 yards. 88 yards and a touchdown for most people is a very good game. But to Tyreek Hill, he said he has to be better. It's unacceptable for him. So you can see the standard that he holds himself to. And I just think the Eagles, they kind of just beat the shit out of the Dolphins on Sunday Night Football. That's pretty much what happened.
All right, Garry, I'll take it to you next. What are your thoughts on the Eagles defeating the Dolphins 31-17?
Yep, I picked the Eagles for you, kid. Not for you, but I picked the Eagles off of, well, you know what? I did exactly what I thought was happening with the Niners. Off a loss, a good team coming off a loss, always play, 10 times harder than next week. And, obviously Philly was at home too, so that's obviously a plus advantage for them as well. And you know what? It comes down, I wrote down right here, right in my notes, comes down to Miami's defense, man. Miami's defense has been the problem. It's been one of the problems here for when they play good teams. They're not be able to stop the good teams, as you can see today. They can get ran on. They get pretty much anything done to them at the moment. They can play solid, but they're missing those two guys right now, like they're gonna get back, and Jalen Ramsey, and I forgot the other guy's name right now, but they got two guys coming back, obviously, to the Miami. What you say?
Howard.
Yeah, Howard. There you go. Howard coming back as well. So those two obviously going to help this team in areas of need. But obviously, I was looking at I was watching Coach McDaniels. He's a cool guy to listen to. I see a little swagger and everything on the sidelines and things of that nature that go viral on the internet. But so I like to hear what he says, one of the young coaches in this league, and he blamed it on obviously the coach. This team is young. We also got to realize this team is young. So that's no excuse. But I do feel like they're getting the learning lessons they need, to be honest with you, versus the good teams. They're not getting. They got smacked versus the Bills, but that's in division. That's bound to happen. They've kind of had their number so far, but this game right here, this was a pretty close game. Instead, that last touchdown kind of put it out of place. But I feel like they were fighting here at moments. I also wanted to mention, like Kev mentioned, AJ Brown is him. I don't know if he's number one, Kev, but man, he up there. He's him. Tyreek didn't have the best of game. He still had a pretty solid game. 88 yards. It sounds like it's not 88 yards. Is like nothing, I guess. But I guess nowadays, but what he's been doing, so it's actually a bad game for him. But overall, they missed on it. This game was really close, Kev. You got to admit, this game was really close. Couple catches here and that long ball was just missed. I think one Tyreek was his fault. To be honest with you, he missed that long ball he could have brought in, and so this game could have flipped the other way. But you got to give credit to where credit to do, like Kev mentioned too. They were able to rush the ball and they were able to control the clock. I wrote it down here. 36 minutes to 23 minutes was really going back to Eagles, how we kind of seen them win last year. Grind it out and let Jalen Hurts be special when time is needed. And man, I don't know if I like this Philly special, Kev. I don't know, whatever the Philly push, whatever. The Philly shut. I've been seeing a lot of I've seen both sides, and you can see athletes. There's a lot of guys in the league hurry on both sides. So I'm like, I see some people mention the injury aspect. I'm like, okay. But also, I like how your coach said it. Not everyone can do it. If you can stop it, stop it. If you can't, because there's teams trying to do it and they can't do it right. So, you don't want to give that, got to give credit to that. So, because literally it's feeling like, all right, on 1st and 9. Every drive starts first and 9. Even first in like 8, because if it's like 1.5, they're still going for it. You know what I'm saying? So, like, it's a very big advantage for them. So, you got to give them credit for finding a niche right now that's really helping them and making the game easier for them. One of these times, I think they used it. I think I seen they used it. What? The one time they're gonna fake out of it again. I think they faked out already one time before
this week.
Yeah,
I think that was this week. Yeah, but yeah.
And they said they shouldn't have used that for later on, which probably should have. Maybe they just wanted to run it and see if it works one time. So one of these times, it's probably gonna come out crucial. And one of these times, everyone's gonna get on them when they stop them, kid. I'm not gonna lie. It's gonna be everyone. Yeah, finally they stopped them. But until that moment comes, they're gonna keep using it, and other people are gonna keep using it. And you know what? I'm going to let, obviously, NFL is going to decide if it's safe or not. You know what I'm saying? If it's not safe, I agree it should be taken out. If it's that big of like injury factor of like guys push each other's backs and things like that. But to be honest with you, that kind of happens on any push and anything like that. So it's kind of like, I guess, it's really if you want your quarterback to be put through that, basically getting shoved through and things of that nature. And Jalen Hurts, you got to give him credit. He'd be going through that. So those are things I wanted to one thing I want to mention from Miami too, offensively, like Kev mentioned, he mentioned all the stats and how basically they got shut down this weekend on offense in some which way, not fully shut down, but in some way shut down. And I think you gotta give Miami has to look at this where like they're dominating the good teams as they should, which is great for that's a good sign in a good team. So that's what I agree with their coach, and they're just young. It's not like they're fumbling these losses. These are bad losses. These are good losses to have. You don't want a loss in the NFL, but this is a good loss to have. And I feel like the blueprints getting made on them, how to stop them. Obviously, the back-to-back good games, like Bills and Eagles, good teams beating you. I think that the offense has to involve, like when people are not falling for the pre-snap stuff, Vaughn, then, they got to involve to, to get better. So they got so many weapons. Like you said earlier, when people are getting physical with them and beating the finesse out of them, they kind of do like what you guys do. You guys have physicality most of the time and finesse. They got to get that physical part on their offense because right now they're just finesse. And when someone, like you said, when someone hits them in the mouth, it's pretty much, and it's not looking good for them when the big dogs come through. So they got to be able to, they got it in the building. I feel like that's one good thing to say. They got it in the building. They got the coaching staff. They just got to take that next evolution in their offense. It might take another year, but I feel like it's there in Miami.
Yeah, so we got some comments we got to get to. Uncle Manny, to all your own listeners, the Dolphins are beating a bunch of scrubs. Gary mentioned it earlier. They played a 2-4 Chargers, 2-5 Patriots, 0-5 Broncos, or 2-5 Broncos, 0-6 Panthers. Excuse me. Two teams with winning divisions or winning records. Excuse me, were the Bills and us, and those were the two losses. Kazi, I said it before. This game was a must-win, dominant performance, even while not playing our best football. No, defense is amazing. Just taking what I said. Defense is amazing. Defense is amazing. Does that sound right to you guys? Because it just got better. The Titans. Thank you. Thank you. Whatever side deal is going on for Tennessee to Philly, keep it going, Vrabel. If you get a ring when we win, or if you ever get fired, you get the DC. Whatever it is doing, I'm here for it. I love it. Kevin Byard. We traded Terrell Edmonds in a 2024 5th and 6th round for Kevin Byard, born and raised in Philadelphia, 27 career picks since being drafted in 2016, All-Pro in 2017 and 2021. Last season, coming off 116 tackles and leading the team with 4 picks. This might be the best secondary in football. We come on here week in and week out and say how we have holes in our secondary. This fills that hole. So our secondary is now James Bradbury, Darius Slay, Reed Blankenship, and Kevin Byard. This defense is getting scary, and Shaun Desai is sitting at home with his feet back saying,
they're patching up,
I'm
kid.
looking forward to it.
They're going for it right now, man. They're going for it. Let's see. Let's see, Kaz. Let's see if it's worth it all, man.
It's time to do it.